Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. And I hope that if the things we discuss here are of interest, you will be kind enough to click the subscribe button and tune into our weekly calls. This is going to be a little bit different call today. I've been doing these calls for nearly 15 years, and I can honestly say that for the first time, I'm completely and totally unprepared for this call. There's a lot going on in this country right now affecting us far beyond the currencies. And our trust package, for a lot of reasons, is the solution to a lot of those problems. And all of this stuff has basically been running through my mind. And so what I'm going to do today, rather than scream at the television set, is to go through this information. I will try not to vent, but I can make no guarantees. Again, I don't like what's going on in this country. I haven't liked it for the last few years. This bunch in Washington do not have our best interests at heart. Anyone that hasn't figured that out, frankly, is just not paying attention. I will, though, for those of you calling in the first time, suggest you go to our call of March 27th, because that is one of our classic calls. We get into all of the information that most of you have tuned in to listen to. I will try to cover a lot of that, but I want to get into some other things as well. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. These are speculative investments, and we're not advocating any specific investment, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, not only with dinar, but with some of the other currencies as well. We're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, our greatest interest is a window for the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. It's kind of an open window. I certainly think it's going to happen this year, and it could happen rather quickly. I don't see any way it can't happen. They started down the road of no return when they outlawed the use of the dollar for the Iraqi citizen, and everything they've done since then is inextricably moving in that direction. So, there were times in the past when we thought this thing was going to happen, and for some reason it was postponed. In retrospect, there were some things that still needed to be done, but as far as I'm concerned, those things are done. And so it's just a matter of time, and I think time is rather short. So let's start and talk about what is going on in Iraq. I've said this on my most recent calls, and I think it bears repeating. As far as I'm concerned, the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is already done. All of the players know that it's done. They know it's going to happen. They know it's going to happen relatively quickly. The only thing they don't know for sure is the exact rate, the new rate for the dinar. But when you look at what has been accomplished in the last year, you can only make that conclusion. The passage of a 3-year budget, which simply cannot be funded with the U.S. dollar, the fact that the U.S. dollar has been outlawed for use in country, the fact that everyone is in agreement at this point with the HCL and that it has been inspected and approved by the cabinet, the fact that Iraq has signed a number of very lucrative multinational contracts to rebuild their infrastructure, the fact that Iraq is now involved with currency swaps with other nations, the fact that Iraq has been invited to be a member of the BRICS nations, and the fact that a number of international agencies now state that Iraq is in the safe range for payment of foreign debt. And lastly, the lifting of Executive Order 13303. Now, 13303 loosely alludes to the fact that we as individuals can invest in the Iraqi dinar, and that's something that most individuals have concentrated on over the last decade. However, 13303 did not exist with the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar, and there was no restriction on our ability to invest in the Kuwaiti dinar, so why would there be a restriction to invest in the Iraqi dinar? No, what 13303 basically did was it was a form of protection for Iraq, and it was done through the United States handling the sale of oil in order to ensure that the profit, that the monies received could be utilized to rebuild the country rather than pay any international claims from other nations. So this is important. They had the DFI fund, which was the Foreign Direct Investment Account, which protected the funds. But since that time, Iraq has turned itself around economically. Since that time, they have made full restitution to Kuwait, and now they possess the wealth to handle their own international financial affairs, which means that the lifting of 13303 will allow them to sell oil and conduct other international business utilizing the Iraqi dinar, which means that the Iraqi dinar should increase substantially in value, and which allows us as individual citizens to freely invest in the currency. So all of the things that they've accomplished and all of the contracts that they've signed and all of the multilateral agreements are completely and totally worthless at a program rate. They make no sense at all at a program rate. Therefore, the nation-state of Iraq has to exercise its full sovereignty, which would include their own sovereign currency. I want to review a little bit about what we discussed in terms of the timeline in Iraq, which supports what I'm saying. We know that Ramadan is probably the highest celebratory time religiously in Islam. This year, Ramadan went from March 9th to April 8th. At the end of Ramadan, which of course is a period of prayer and fasting, not unlike Christian Lent, comes the feast of Eid al-Fitr, which is going to run this year from April 9th to April 14th. So we're actually in Eid al-Fitr as we speak. This is a period of feasting, celebration, and gift giving. And what greater gift could the government of Iraq give its citizens than their new national currency? On April 15th, the day after the celebration of Eid al-Fitr, Sudani is to visit the United States along with members of his cabinet, members of parliament, and influential business owners in Iraq. And what's on the agenda for discussion? Well, release of the OFAC sanctions on banks that had been utilizing the U.S. dollar, release of the DFI funds, which again is the Foreign Direct Investment Funds, which will allow Iraq to then manage its own purchase and sale of oil, and in addition to the billions of dollars that will return to their CBI. And Sudani is presenting the files on the banking reforms, economic and monetary reforms. These are all the last planks required in order for the issuance of their new national currency and their new exchange rate. In addition to that, they've received global assistance from the United States Treasury, the World Bank, the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, Bank of International Settlements, and they are now working with both the Saudis and Dubai. They're also announcing that their national debt, international debt, is being reduced from trillions to billions. Well, what that can only mean is that the Iraqi dinar, which is worth a mere fraction of a penny, is now going to be worth substantially more, reducing their indebtedness from trillions in dinar to billions in dinar. That being the case, It's just a matter of time. Now, we've been waiting for a number of years. I, along with many of you, thought this was going to happen a long time ago. One of the reasons I thought that was because I got involved in the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar, and from the moment I purchased the Kuwaiti dinar to the moment I went to the bank to exchange it, or actually, I didn't go to the bank, but the people that were contracted by our group to go to Kuwait to exchange the currency was a mere 4 months. So when I got involved in the Iraqi dinar, like most of you, I did not anticipate this taking as long as it has. But our wait has been well worth it, and it's not going to be much longer. The reason I said I was going to vent today is because I'm much more concerned with some things that are going on in this country right now. And I'm going to go back a little bit in time because I think this is a good primer for explaining why we've established our Family Asset Protection Trust package and why it's a very important thing for all Americans to do, whether they're holders of dinar and other currencies or not. And I've got to go back to the establishment of the progressive movement in the early 19th century. We hear the word progressive, and we naturally think, well, to progress, to improve, to move beyond, to evolve, etc. But the progressives had a very specific meaning and definition for progressive. What they meant was, by the term progressive, was that they wanted to progress beyond the colloquial constraints of the Constitution. In other words, our Constitution, and particularly the Bill of Rights, was an impediment to the centralized, highly controlled government that they wanted to establish. When Barack Obama was running for president, he used a different term. He said he wanted to fundamentally transform the country. Well, that's what he was referring to. You see, the progressives fell out of favor, and so they decided to call themselves liberals. And when Barack Obama came along, he wasn't going to use the word progressive. So he said fundamentally transform, which in essence was the same thing because he referred to the Bill of Rights as a group of negative rights because they denied the government the control that it needed and it wanted. It was Hillary Clinton that first proclaimed herself a proud progressive, and the term was reentering the parlance. And fortunately for us, she was not elected. But as I said, the progressive movement began about 100 years ago. One of the progressive presidents and a protagonist for the progressive movement was Woodrow Wilson. And he did a number of things which we look back now and created problems. He created, of course, the League of Nations, which, of course, became the United Nations, which is an organization that's fundamentally anti-American. He also created the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and it's not a reserve. It was the third central bank created in the United States. And in order to establish this, they basically had to misrepresent what they were doing, but the Federal Reserve was created. So rather than simply continue to follow the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8, which allowed us to create our own currency, we decided to create a central bank, allow them to create the currency, and pay interest on that money. It is projected that in the year 2024, the interest payment to the Federal Reserve for the money that they print that we borrow will exceed the amount of money that the federal government spends on our national defense, their number one job. That right there ought to send chills up your spine. Well, they had a problem. How are we going to pay the interest on this money? They created the federal income tax. So the federal income tax was created in order to pay the interest on the money that we were borrowing from the Federal Reserve when such lending was not even necessary, since under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, we could create our own currency. This is what's created the criminal organization referred to as Washington, D.C. What happens in Washington? They spend money we don't have. They borrow that money from the Federal Reserve. A lot of that money is used for foreign aid to go to foreign countries. Then these politicians establish charitable organizations, nonprofits, and these foreign countries invest in these things, enriching the politicians. And that's why these politicians are all extremely wealthy. The best examples I can give you are Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton. When the Clintons left the White House, they had a net worth of approximately $850,000. Then they created the Clinton Fund, the Global Fund. They have a net worth now north of $200 million. Have they created one job? What have they done economically? Is Haiti in better shape than they were before? No. This is what's been going on. Woodrow Wilson did something else, too. He created the public school system. And at the time, he said the objective of the public school system was not to create men of letters. That the parlance of the time, men of letters meant they were not going to create well-educated, classically educated men and women taught history and critical thinking skills. They were basically going to dumb down the population. There was even a movie that was made about this. It's a very popular movie. As a matter of fact, it's a Christmas classic. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. And the objective of that movie, the underlying theme of that movie, was to slam the central banking system. And the personification of the central banking system was the banker in town named Mr. Potter, who said he wanted to create a thrifty working class. And he opposed Jimmy Stewart, who was trying to create a bank that lent money to individuals to build businesses, to buy homes, to generally do the things that we all want to do for ourselves and our families. After the Depression, the progressives sort of went away. That was their first play. They called themselves liberals. And again, it wasn't until Hillary Clinton came along in the 2015 presidential election, said that she was a proud progressive and the progressive movement was back. Of course, it was back under Obama because, again, we were fundamentally transforming the country, but he didn't get the job done. Something happened. Donald Trump showed up. And miraculously, despite all of the pundits, Donald Trump won the election and Donald Trump became the president. And he began to undo everything that Obama and hopefully Hillary Clinton had wanted to do. Now we're in a situation where they're doing everything they can to make sure that he's not the candidate in 2024. I think they're going to fail. But the mantra now is the same as it was 100 years ago, saving our democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional representative republic, and that's what they don't like. Because in a constitutional representative republic, we are decentralized. We have 3 branches of government. They have checks and balances. The states have authority over everything that's not specifically delegated to the Constitution. One example I can give you that is the recent reversal of Roe v. Wade. It didn't outlaw abortions nationally. It simply said that the issue falls to the states pursuant to the 10th Amendment because it's not specifically earmarked for the federal government through the Constitution. But here's what these protectors of our democracy want to do. They want the ability to interfere with elections by simply arresting their opponents. They want to stack the Supreme Court. They want to end the Electoral College. They want to end the Senate filibuster. They want to stack the House by allowing illegals to participate in the census. And they want to amend or repeal the First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, and the 10th Amendments. And in addition to retaining their central bank, they want to create a central bank digital currency with a credit score system which monitors all our expenditures and punishes us if we spend monies in ways not to their liking. How does that save our democracy? It doesn't. Are they going to succeed at this? I don't think so. I don't think so. But there are things that we can do as citizens. When confronted with a problem, we can either be reactive or we can be proactive. By being reactive, we simply try to defend ourselves or fix a situation when it occurs. By being proactive, we anticipate a prospective issue and we deal with it before it happens so that we don't have to deal with it when it happens. This is what our trust package does, whether you're a denarian or whether you're an American citizen who's paying attention and is aware of what's been going on in this country. So some 15 years ago, I guess it's been that long now, we've been marketing our trust package to individuals that hold dinar and other currencies. But as time has progressed, we've realized that the benefits that this trust package has always provided to any American citizen are just as important to denarians as they are to everyone else. And what are these benefits? The trust package provides privacy and anonymity. That means the assets within your trust, which constitutes your estate, your holdings, are sealed, and the general public has no knowledge of your net worth and your actual holdings. And frankly, it's none of their business anyway. Second, this trust package helps you to avoid undue IRS scrutiny. If you have currencies and they're assigned to this trust, when they revalue, the IRS most likely won't do what they would do if you would own these things in direct title, audit you and perhaps even do a 6-year audit because of the magnitude of this revaluation. Because they see you have a rather sophisticated trust package, and they'd much rather deal with the low-hanging fruit, Joe Lunchbox, and the people that don't have sophisticated trusts. But let's assume the IRS decides to audit your trust. They can't do a 6-year audit because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. Sometimes you're hesitant to gift currencies to people because you don't think they can handle the post-RV proceeds. However, if you gift to them through one of the sub-trusts in this package, you will not only avoid the federal gift tax by gifting them pre-RV currencies, but you'll have complete control of the post-RV proceeds for their benefit. Fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is to be structured in such a way as to allow you to avoid the cost and delay and of probate and the federal estate tax. Now, probate ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But if you have a very large estate and a number of heirs that are receiving a substantial amount of money, probate can take a very long period of time, sometimes longer than a decade. But if your assets are in trust, there is no probate. The assets are simply available to the prospective beneficiaries. In addition, this trust will allow you to avoid the federal estate tax. Under current law, approximately $10 million of your estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. However, if your assets are in trust, not only will your estate avoid probate, meaning the public will have no knowledge of your net worth, what you held, who inherited and how much they inherited. But they would get 100 cents on a dollar of your estate because the federal estate tax would be waived. Last benefit is asset protection. This trust provides asset protection both pre- and post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Very simply, what that means is you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title. So as an example, let's say you had 10 million dinar, you purchased $10,000 for it, you transferred the currency to our trust pre-RV. Let's say they were valued for $10 million. Let's be conservative and say it came back at $1. Can you be sued for the $10 million? No. Why? Because when you transferred the currencies out of title to the trust, they were only worth $10,000. That's all you could ever be sued for. When someone sees they could only sue you for $10,000, it's just not even worth their time. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through something called segregation of assets. This is why we've established a package of trusts, and this is basically how it would work. As you purchase assets, you place each of them in a separate sub-trust. Your home, your vacation home, rental properties, homes, cars, boats, etc. And I'll even give you an example how that would work. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault. And tragically, someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards. You don't legally own anything. So the plaintiff would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole, and all of your other wealth, assets, and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because the other sub-trusts are separate legal entities having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. Therefore, the plaintiff would have no standing to pursue them. This is why this trust package will protect you if you are a denarian, if you are a person of substantial wealth, or if you are a person of modest means who probably would have more of a need to protect what little you have rather than being cleaned out by a civil suit. So you need to remember that under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And invariably, it's those times in life when you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now courtesy of the information age is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. We at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now, if the things we've discussed here today are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you contact us either by email or phone to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about all the services that we provide, and everything you need if you wish to apply for a trust. But you're under absolutely no obligation to do so. You can review the information. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. You can contact us either by email or phone. Our email address is trusts unlimited LLC@gmail.com. That's trusts@gmail.com, or our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll be happy to get our initial package out to you. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. If you wish to proceed, everything you need is in the package. So I'm going to go ahead and open our Q&A. I usually give you our contact information after I've opened the Q&A in order to allow people to call in, but I neglected to do so, so I'm just going to give it a second here, see if anyone wants to call in. One other thing I do want to mention, actually I was going to mention it on the call, and it kind of slipped my mind. You need to familiarize yourself with something called the Guarantee Clause. This is Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. Again, it's referred to as the Guarantee Clause. It basically states that the United States shall guarantee to every state in the United States or in this union a Republican form of government. That is a decentralized form of government utilizing the system of federalism that the present occupant of the White House and leaders of the Democratic Party explicitly want to eradicate. It says that we shall be protected against any invasion or domestic violence. Well, what else would you call 10 million illegal aliens bum-rushing our southern border? These people are violating the Constitution, they're violating the law, and they're gaslighting us about it. This is another reason why you need to protect your wealth from litigation and from a federal government that, frankly, has forsaken its number one obligation, which is to protect its citizens. This cannot be denied. I can't believe there are still people that see what's going on in this country and don't understand what a calamity has occurred in the last 3 years. I remember studying in school in depth when we studied Germany in the 1930s and the rise of Hitler, and saying to myself, how could the people not see what was happening to their country? Well, now we know how that can happen because we're seeing it happen to us. And the people, the very people that are calling this out and saying stop it, are the people being called Nazis. It's completely backwards. But we have a chance to do something about it. It's not too late. I'm talking about voting, getting involved in politics, going to PTA meetings, stopping this nonsense. But again, from a financial standpoint, one of the best things you can do is establish your family asset protection trust package, put a wall around your finances for yourself, for your children, and your grandchildren. Okay, we got some callers in here today. Our first caller is area code 702. That's 702. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Jim. Just a quick question. I funded my package. When shall I apply for my EIN number?
Okay. Have you received your completed trust package yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. You will receive it shortly. When you receive the trust package, you will receive instructions. Within the instructions, you will receive a protocol for getting your EIN number. However, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write down your name and your phone number right now, just in case I can't pull up your email directly. I will send you the protocol for the acquiring the EIN number. Now, you don't need the EIN number pre-RV. You want to get it as soon as possible, but you need your EIN number the day you walk into the bank for the exchange. But I will get that information to you either by phone, email, or both right after this call, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 763. That's 763. Go ahead. Hello, 763?
Yeah, it's Monty from Minnesota. How are you doing today, Jim?
Okay, Monty, how are you?
Good. I'm on a great history lesson of, I didn't think you vented too bad, so I think you did good on sharing some of the viewpoints of history, so kudos for you, and we always love hearing your opinion on stuff.
I appreciate it. I did all my screaming before the call.
There you go. Typical, I got some pretty easy questions, and I got a couple of questions in the weeds, so we'll start with the easy ones first here. Kind of going off of the previous gentleman, obviously I've had my trust through you for 3 years, 4 years, something like that, and it was always my interpretation or understanding that you wanted us to wait to get the EIN number until it revalued in the quarter that it was in. Has that changed, or was that just a misinterpretation for me? Because right now I do not have an EIN number.
Okay, first, what we were saying was we didn't want people to establish bank accounts pre-RV. Now, we had some clients that acquired their EIN number and established trust bank accounts pre-RV, and we had a number of clients who got in trouble, not in trouble, but they were with Wells Fargo, and they had to keep going back in to reopen their account because of a lack of activity. Of course, it turned out that what was going on was there was a little nefarious activity going on with some of the employees who kept reopening accounts because they were getting little bonuses for doing so, and as a result, they were inconveniencing thousands of clients, bank holders, account holders, and they were fined $80 million for doing that. Now, the other issue is that not only did we say it was not a good idea to establish the bank account pre-RV, you don't even know what bank you're going to do your exchange, so why complicate it by having accounts at other banks? And, of course, you're going to need an EIN number in order to establish a trust bank account, and you're first going to need to establish your trust in order to get the EIN number. So the objective was get your trust in force, apply for your EIN number, and hold both of them until you go to the bank to do your exchange. You're going to have a lot more leverage with a bank. You walk in and say, here, I have this trust that you don't know understand anything about, and here's $100 I want to open a bank account, versus saying, I have a trust you don't know anything about, and I want to open a trust bank account because I want to exchange 10 million dinar. We call it the Jed Clampett effect. You're going to get a lot more cooperation with dinar in hand post-RV.
Awesome. So, for example, I'm assuming you're setting up a lot of these trusts, like, say, for example, mine is, I'm just going to use your name, Jim George Family Trust, is how mine's set up, but in my name. So when you go to set up your EIN number, would you set it up with the exact same name on your trust? Or it has to be.
Okay, it has to be the exact name. I have the George Family Asset Management Trust, and the EIN certificate says the George Family Asset Management Trust.
Okay.
So make it exact. If it's off by a word, or you had the number 325 and it only had 32 in there, I doubt very seriously the bank's going to have a problem. But you can't have an EIN number that says, XYZ fund when it's the ABC fund. It has to be the same name.
Yeah. Okay, so that was where I was hoping where we could make up any name, like Big Bruce Spruce Properties, for example, for privacy issues. But okay.
Well, remember, you already enjoy the privacy. The fact that you have a trust doesn't mean anyone knows anything about it. And as a matter of fact, the only time it becomes an issue is if you're actually in litigation and you're going to have to disclose that you have a trust. So it's not the name of the trust that protects you, it's the terms of the trust.
So say if on my EIN, could I just use my last name, family trust for my EIN number and leave out my first name?
You have to use whatever the name of your asset management trust is. Again, mine is the George Family Asset Management Trust, and my EIN certificate is for the George Family Asset Management Trust.
Okay. I believe mine is my first and last name, but I'll have to confirm that. Okay. Sounds good. That's great. And then would there ever be any situation where we should consider either a charitable or a nonprofit foundation once this takes place?
Absolutely. You'll be looking at a huge tax liability with the reevaluation. One of the things that we will be establishing is something called a charitable remainder trust. So let's say, for example, you have 10 million dinar, you go to the bank, you exchange it, you just get $1 for it. You got $10 million. And you decide, you know what, I'm going to leave my church $1 million when I pass away. So you create a charitable remainder trust. Beneficiary will be your church. That means when you pass away, the corpus, what's in that trust, will go to the church. But it also means that all of the income generated on that corpus that is being invested during your lifetime, all of that dividends and interest, are tax-free to you. So this is a way you can set the money aside and have tax-free income. Now, there are other charities where you're going to give them the money outright, and, of course, that reduces your taxable liability because that principal is gone. But this is a situation where you retain the principal and you have the tax-free income. You don't get the deduction on the charitable gift because it hasn't been given yet, but you have tax-free income for life.
So in my situation, obviously to significantly reduce my tax liability legally, I'll add that last word, I want to purchase 2 or 3 apartment complexes. So would this be something that could easily be tied into something like that?
By doing that, now that isn't a charity, that's a business. But however, and as a matter of fact, that's what I plan on doing myself. Is I plan on buying
do the REITs.
I'm going to do REITs, but I'm for liquidity purposes because I want that money available to me because I can liquidate a REIT in a day. I'm going to buy rental properties, 2 and 3 bedroom homes as rental properties because I do spend the money, but I have the depreciation on the property and I have capital expenditures. So if I purchase a home, for example, that costs just $100,000 and I spend $15,000 improving it to rent it out, well, the $15,000 I can deduct as a capital expenditure, and the first year depreciation, because the property decreases in value, I have that. So I purchased a home, I may only put a deposit down on it. So out of my pocket, I haven't spent that much, but the deduction's even greater than that. So there's a lot of things we can do. And once the dinar reinstitutes in country, we're going to be shifting and talking more specifically about, now that we know this money's coming in, how do we invest it? What's the best tax environment to be in, et cetera, et cetera. But, yeah, real estate's the way to go. And remember, if the central bank digital currency does ever come to fruition, you're going to want to transition to tangible assets. That's why I like the REITs, because your principal is in physical assets, not under the control of the federal government.
Yep. Awesome. Great deal. And that's the $1 million question with some of us here is once it revalues, I think we're all going to be chomping at the bit to go to the bank. A lot of us are, but obviously some are going to want to hold out as much as we can within the quarter, of course. I want to add that. So, for tax purposes, no penalties, we got to pay that the following month at the end of the quarter. So,
right.
There's going to be a lot of information we're going to want to get educated on.
Right. You also said something about applying in the quarter. When you apply for your EIN number, they ask you the date of inception or the date of funding. It's a fictitious date, but you have to give them a date in that quarter, because if you give them a date in a previous quarter, not only will you not get an EIN number, they will send you a quarterly tax return for all of those previous quarters. So, if you're applying in this quarter, you want to use, June 1st. Where are we? March? Yeah, March, April. No, it's January, February, March, April, May. We're in April. Yeah, so say you'd use June 1, say that's the inception date. It would be in this quarter, so you'd get your EIN number. You wouldn't get a tax return for a previous quarter.
So we will get, once we get this EIN, we will start getting paperwork for taxes?
No, you will file each quarter. If you don't have any taxable earning, let's say you got your EIN number in a previous quarter. Well, they'll send you a tax return. You just send it back. There's nothing, I've assigned my currencies to the trust. There's nothing else in there, so there's nothing to file. But the point is if you give them a date in the previous quarter, you'll keep getting a quarterly return that you're just going to you say, right. I have no taxable income. So you just don't want to do that.
Okay.
All right.
So we will be getting something mailed to us each quarter that we need to fill out and just put 0 in it.
No, you may get nothing. But if you do get something, just say there's no taxable income.
Okay. Awesome.
All right.
Then my last question, this is getting in the weeds a little bit more. Obviously, you have a very, 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 I want to say sophisticated, take that as a compliment, trust that we all have. You've shared that, which I don't blame you 100%, you're going to retire, get out of this once it RVs, and I don't blame you 100% for not doing that. Is there any chance that Trusts Unlimited may, let's just say, sell the business, or I believe his name is Mr. Blage?
Yeah, Mr. Blige. I know your question. The answer is Mr. Bly will be running the post-RV management of the trust. But at some point, if he wants to retire, he will sell the practice. Well, he won't sell the practice to someone that's not a trust specialist, and someone that's not a trust specialist wouldn't be interested in it. He wouldn't sell it to someone that does, something completely unrelated to this. So I don't anticipate any of that happening at all. There will always be someone that will be able to manage this. But with the number of clients we have, I see no way that he wouldn't just sell to a firm that would want the business, because all of our people, they're going to want to fund a sub-trust. They're going to want to add a protector and a second trustee. Yeah. They're going to have family situations to change. There's plenty of work that needs to be done, and I'm sure that there's plenty of firms that would be happy to involve themselves. The other option that Mr. Bly could option, because he's actually a little bit older than I am, is he just may bring in some new attorneys to handle the work, and then over time transfer the practice to them. He'll pay them to do the work, and they'll basically buy in over time. But to be honest with you, sure, I will be long gone by then.
Yeah.
As will all of us.
The thing is with
Wyoming, I have a trust too. I'm going to need help too. Yeah.
Is it my understanding with the Wyoming trust, you need to work with an attorney that's in Wyoming, right? You can't work with an attorney.
No, this is going to have to be your last question. I got a lot of callers here. No, any trust attorney can work with it. All this means is that if you're ever being sued, you're protected under the Wyoming statutes. Okay, so that doesn't affect where you live or any of that. Okay?
Great information. Thank you, Jim. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 860. That's 860. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. John Bacon. How are you?
Sir. In the weeds, my friend.
Yes. I still need to. Okay. We still need to finish that thing that we're working on.
Okay. Hold on a sec. I'm going to call you right after this call. Hold on. Let me write this number down. Is this number that I've got on the screen here the number you want me to call? 860 number?
No. It's my cell phone. No,
okay. I've got that.
No, my cell phone number.
All right. If I have an issue, I think I don't want to say the number over the line here. And if I try to text it to you right now, I'll lose the call because I'm not good at this. So I will, one way or the other, I will get to you after this call, okay? Okay, John?
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
All right. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Screen from New York. I have a question. Will the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, if it ramps up even more, would that affect the RV?
I don't think it would at all. I don't think it would have any effect at all.
No, I mean,
understand what you're saying. The Middle East could blow up. I understand that.
Yeah.
I just don't see how that would be a problem because the issue is whether or not Iraq has made the progress necessary to reinstate their currency, not whether there's a war in the region. Now, I guess what you're implying is what happens if Iraq were to get involved in the war. I don't think that Iraq would. As a matter of fact, Iraq has basically set a pox on both your houses. We don't want Iranians in the country, and we don't want American soldiers in the country. So they're basically saying, we have a different agenda right now, and I don't see what's going on in the Israel-Palestinian issue affecting that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 615. That's 615. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Quick question. As parents can give tax-free to their kids, I think the new amount's $18,000 or something like that from each one of them. Can the trust also do that?
Can the trust do that?
Yeah, in other words, can the trust give
I understand. You know what? Okay. That's a good question. Hold on a second. Well, first thing I'm going to have to do is write down your number because my initial reaction would be yes. I don't know why they couldn't. The difference is, as an individual, you're limited to how much that you can give to federal tax-free. That wouldn't be the case with the trust because if you give them the money, they would pay the tax.
Got it. Well, that was the point.
I mean, if the trust had earnings and they transferred the earnings to the child or to a friend or family member, they would pay the tax on the gain. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So you'd be exempt from the tax. They'd pay the tax.
Got it. Other thing
okay.
is, do you have a step-by-step for transferring assets from the trust to the kids in the subtrust?
Well, with the gifting subtrust, what would happen is you would negotiate your exchange. All of the USD would then go into the trust bank account established that day at that bank utilizing the EIN number. If you look at the exchange protocol, which was one of the supplemental documents that came with your trust, it specifically says don't take anything else to the bank, don't even mention the gift subtrust, it'll just complicate the exchange process. You will go back to the bank a week, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, with your gift subtrust and say, now, I want to create bank accounts for these 5 people that are in these subtrusts, and I want to transfer X amount of money from my trust bank account to each of these newly established accounts. At that point, you can give money to your kids from those bank accounts. You can set up investment accounts for the kids. You can do whatever you want. But that's phase 2 of the exchange process, which is funding the gift subtrust.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, this is Art over in the left coast.
Yes,
Washington
sir.
State. I want to touch base with you kind of like along the lines of the previous gentleman referenced the gift subtrust. Now, we've established that we have the EIN, we have the documentation for it. After that is in place, and when you go to the bank to open up those accounts, you need like an addendum listing that would accompany the gift subtrust, listing those individuals and the account.
Within the gift subtrust is a document you should have executed called the Minutes of Meeting Gifting Letter. And in that letter, you've listed the recipients. In my opinion, you don't need to do any of that. In my opinion, once again, you go to the bank, you do your exchange, you now have $10 million sitting in that bank account. You go in there and say, now, I'm going to establish 5 more accounts. Here's my EIN number for the subtrust. These are the accounts I want to establish, and I want to transfer $200,000 to each of these 5 accounts. If the bank says no, which would seem highly unlikely to me, or why are we doing this? And say, well, I mean, if you're not going to do that, I'm just going to take that $1 million and I'm going to take it to another bank. You shouldn't have a problem at all. Again, once that money's in their bank, they're going to do their dog and pony show for you because they don't want that money to leave the bank. Of course, it's going to leave the bank because you're going to do what's in your best interest, not what's in their best interest. But this is why we said you don't even mention the subtrust or any of that to them, or you don't take that in with you. The exchange protocol document specifically states what you say and what you don't say, what you take and what you don't take with you. So you shouldn't have a problem at all, once again, because you will have already established a relationship with that bank. You'll already have a trust account with that bank. You'll have a substantial amount of money in that account, and the bank would be deaf, dumb, and stupid not to cooperate with such a reasonable request. I want to set up 5 more accounts and transfer money to them.
Gotcha. Understand. So then with the those accounts, and those open up for those individuals, intuitively you would be the one who signed the checks to go to those individuals.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, they would be under your control. You are the settler/trustee of the gift subtrust and the settler/trustee of each bank account established under that subtrust.
Brilliant, my friend. I love it.
Well,
okay, I'll let you go. Thank you for accounting all that you do. Bye now.
Thanks a lot, Art. Take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code. Let's see. Do I have another caller here? I thought I did. Let me check one more time. No, I don't have any additional callers here today, so I guess we're pretty much done for today. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. And for those of you calling in for the first time, if you are interested in the things we've discussed and would like to further investigate the possibility of establishing your family asset protection trust package, please contact us again, either going to our email or phone number for request. Again, our email is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC at gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us. We'll get our initial trust package right out to you. Our next call is, of course, scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and next Wednesday, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye now.
Recorded.